are, right? That's the difference. So we're talking about allocations. Yes, we are the Aboriginal indigenous people of the planet. Still, you were born. You have a nationality. It is derived from your mother. It is given to you birthrights at birth, and everyone has one. And we still can be, we are family. We need to recognize that so that we can do what we need to do, which is to nationalize. Nationality does mean unity, but we can't come together in unity, as the brother said, we do that all the time, without speaking of where we derived our birthrights from, and therefore being natural people and a natural status. So we must learn the difference between the words. We can't just say we're Aboriginal indigenous and not claim and be called by our names.
Immortal technique. To add on what he was saying, and to also incorporate it with other questions, and to talk about what this brother was saying also. I was born in Hospital Militar de Lima in South America, military hospital in South America. And I learned that the people were called many things, whether they called them Inca, or Incaico, or Amaru, or Chica, or whatever names you want to give them. These names are meaningless, and the history of our people is meaningless unless we can apply that science, unless we can apply that law to how we live our lives now. So we can realize in the fashion that we were colonized. Who were we before 1492? There's a story about how this island of Manhattan was given to people. They say, and the legend goes that it was sold for $23, and that's a lie. What really happened is that there were tribes in what is now New Jersey, and the Europeans came to them, and they knew they were warring with the tribes of the people that were living here in Manhattan. And they said to them, sell us the land of your enemies.
They weren't even local.
Exactly. And it was the equivalent of you living in a project and you having beef with the project next door, and someone coming from out of town saying, I'll give you $200 million for that brother's project. And you thinking in your head, like Cassius mentioned that word earlier, I don't give a fuck about that nigga's project. But at the same time, you're not thinking that one day somebody's going to come by and say, you know what, I want to buy his project. I want to buy his land. The way the people of the Aboriginal, original, indigenous, or however we choose to term them, people of South America were conquered was not by a handful of Spaniards whose personal hygiene can be described as horrendous. It's not described as people who used arc boosters. It was because they divided the individual tribes of people, because they turned one against another, because they found petty differences, because they used the first terms of gene warfare on this side of the world. Without that, it would have been physically impossible for them to conquer us. So when it comes down to society falling, as Befor pointed out, that soon we'll be confronted with these things, it's going to be the difference in between the person of character and a person of conscience who understands what we need to do about that and has the training to survive, the survivalist training, not just the historical notion of who we are, but the survivalist training to carry on the legacy of who we are. That's not how just we know what we were before 1492, but what we're going to be after 2092.
Yeah, good. I got a question over here. Another question.
Peace. Some of us call Jesus God, and some of us call Allah God, and some of us call Buddha God. And you guys are telling us we are God. So just my question is, what's the meaning of God to you?
We touched on that earlier.
God?
The word God is used as what we call a German word. It actually comes from an ancient Kemetic word from the Saracens, or so-called Anglo-Saxons, who were black people, who populated Europe during what we call the 400s or the Middle Ages. And the word G, the G sound, when you bring it back into its Aboriginal language, it's a K or a KH. And the D sound, the cognitive that they write, is a T, Kut. Kut. Like Aku, which is the word for the pyramid, or Kut. Kut was the word that meant spirit, okay? And this is a Kemetic word. Kut, God, God. The words that became handed down to the Europeans had an Aboriginal and indigenous meaning. So when we say Kut, we meant spiritual essence, okay? So if you want to say Jesus is the spiritual essence, that's fine. But you cannot detract yourself from the equation. Because as soon as you detract yourself from the equation, you have just initiated your own karmic debt that you have to answer. So Allah, Muhammad, Jesus, whatever you want to call on a being, a man or a woman, you are a collective consciousness and an individual consciousness. When we live by the paradigm of the Europeans, we separate ourselves and we don't understand that we're God.
And I'd like to add to, in agreement with them, and think about this, just for a second, think. The word God came into existence only 500 years ago. So you're not the ancient gods, then the word wasn't even used in that term. So it's interesting how he's breaking it down as to what it is. And Brother Tarik said earlier that it is an act, it is not a being. It is not a being, it's an action.
God is the creator, the Great Spirit. And that's why you see some men and some women behaving in such a way that they leave a legacy, and you said they had a great spirit. When you pray to the Great Spirit. You pray to the creator of the universe, all universes. So don't get it twisted and get caught up in these little sectarian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Christian. The truth is so deep and so universal, and the language. And this brother here used a term, and unfortunately my language doesn't allow me to use it because I trip on it. But it has to do with Mother Nature. What do you call it? Okay, I can't say that, but it means Mother Nature, the creation, which again goes back to the female. Without the female, which is the essence, none of you would get, none. And we need to not forget that. Not to forsake it. The answer to the question is that spirit, that great spirit, that creator, that energy, that power. Unless we submit to it, we're all lost. Next week when these Europeans are eating their babies. Remember I said that, because you're going to pick up the news, and I hate to do this, because I hate to be too direct, but I bad by the nose, I've been at these things, and I said A, B, and C, and it happens. So in 2 weeks, you're going to pick up the paper, and you're going to see somebody ate their baby. And don't forget that I told you. Because they have historically eaten their children, and they will historically continue to do that. So that's a random guess.
Just to add on to that question, my brother, if you notice, he went straight to the etymology, but he went not to the Latin, he went straight to ancient Kemet. In ancient Kemet, Central Africa was called Ta-Ku, the land of the spirit. The Great Lake region was called Ta-Necha, the land of the gods, the land of the creators, who are where the original people comes from. So it goes back. Once you understand your original language, it's telling you. And let me just make this statement. When you're writing in Necha, they use, for example, the adjective that they use to describe divinity, they use the same one to define themselves. And so just like they talk about Amun, the unseen creative force of the universe, they use the same adjective when they talk about their mother. And so you now understand that when you see that the key of life, it represents that you are the God, you are the spirit, and you represent and have a responsibility to protect life, to defend it, but also be a perfect example of it. And so you have to, that's one of our, if we look at ourselves as the divine beings, then unity will become an irrelevant concept because that's all indwelled within it.
You know, that's powerful what we just said. You listen to what we just said. And we should act as gods, not just call ourselves gods. I see the 5% of the men, yo, what up, God? But they're gods. They're not gods. Because we don't act like God. I was in the store the other day, and the counter was crowded up, the line was real long. And this lady was looking for her money. And she's digging all in her purse. And she said, oh my God. I said, yes. And the store